here with reaction. He is the host of Life, Liberty, Levin, nationally syndicated radio host. I call him the Great One, Mark Levin. They're a terror organization. Their charter calls for the destruction of Israel. Now they're mad at people that want peace in their own region, and they're assassinating them. You heard the president. Eradicate's a pretty strong word.
It is, and I've listed here in front of me, Truth Social. The president knows exactly what Hamas is. October 21, October 16, October 14, October 4th, October 3rd, and I go back. He's making it clear Hamas is a terrorist group. They better follow the rules or they're going to be obliterated. This is a very complex peace plan, this phase 2. What happens to Hamas? They're to be disarmed, they're surrender, they're not to have any power whatsoever. But they've already renounced it. They've already said, we're not going anywhere. We're not disarming. They tell the mediators one thing. They are centralizing power now. They're destroying, killing, torturing, interrogating anybody who they think is a challenge to them. In other words, in their little orbit, they're becoming more powerful, not less powerful. And this is a problem. This is a very complex peace plan. The president's right. You've got scores of countries involved, scores of governments involved, scores of personalities involved, different faiths involved, all kinds of things involved. We've never seen anything like this. He deserves great credit for this, as does Jared Kushner, a friend of mine, Steve Witkoff, who I'm becoming friendly with, the prime minister, who's a friend of mine, his man, Ron Dermer, who's a friend of mine. You got the smartest people working on this. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to have to destroy Hamas, because Hamas is not a partner. They're not a country. They're not a team player. They don't believe in diplomacy. Here's the 1988 Hamas original charter: the complete destruction of Israel, obliteration of Israel through jihad, holy war, establishment of an Islamic State to replace the state of Israel and to impose Sharia law, rejection of negotiations, that is, dismisses any negotiated settlement or peace initiatives with Israel. I would suggest people read this. Anti-Semitic rhetoric and conspiracies, language directed at the Jewish people, not just the state of Israel. That is Hamas. Hamas is slaughtering Palestinian Muslims, other Palestinians, other Muslims, and the world is silent. The UN is silent. The Security Council is silent. The River to the Sea crowd, our universities, are silent. The Hamas supporting front groups in our country, CARE and the rest, silent. So apparently it's okay to slaughter Palestinians if it's Palestinians slaughtering Palestinians. I don't believe that, but that's exactly what Hamas is doing. And the Emir of Qatar, dare I mention, he put out a speech today, one of the biggest speeches of the year. Here's what he said. What has taken place in the Gaza Strip over the past 2 years amounts to genocide, a term that encapsulates all atrocities. It is regrettable that international legitimacy remains incapable of enforcing its respect when it comes to the tragedy of our brotherly Palestinian people. We hereby reaffirm our condemnation of all Israeli violations and practices in Palestine, particularly the transformation of the Gaza Strip into an area unfit for human life, the continued breaches of the ceasefire, the expansion of settlements in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, the ongoing attempts to Judaize Al-Sharam al-Sharif, that is the Dome of the Rock, Al-Aqsa Mosque, the holiest place for the Jews. We also reaffirm that the Gaza Strip is an integral part of the Palestinian territories and the United State of Palestine. So that's where our top mediator's head is. They poured $1.8 billion into Hamas. They haven't renounced Hamas. They didn't denounce Hamas theirs. Hamas is slaughtering fellow Palestinians. They didn't say a word about it. And then we're relying on Turkey. Here's Erdogan. You know, the Prime Minister of Israel was invited by the President of Egypt to join all the other countries. And the Prime Minister of Israel said yes, and then he had to say no. Why? Because Erdogan, who hates Israel, who's an Islamist, who threatens them with military extinction and economic distinction, who's a genocidal maniac who's taken over his country, he opposed Netanyahu's attendance, and it was confirmed by his chief of staff. They called Sisi, the president of Egypt, and said, if Netanyahu's there, I'm not coming. Now, these are the two leading countries. So where am I going with this? It's simple. Hamas was surrounded. It is the only army on the face of the earth in modern military history where Israel surrounds its enemy, is about to destroy it, and pulls back for the sake of peace, for the sake of international harmony, and because they're pressured. They surrounded Hamas. They were going to destroy Hamas, and they pulled back. Okay, great. Who's going to take out Israel now? Nations hesitant to send troops to Gaza, fearing clashes with Hamas. Apparently, most of the Arab and Muslim world wants nothing to do with the Palestinians. They wouldn't take any. They want less to do with Hamas. It's going to require Israel and the IDF once again. That's how you're going to get peace once and for all. I'm done. That's it.
I'll add one thing, Mark. Imagine if America were hit with tens of thousands of rockets over decades, tens and tens of thousands. Imagine the equivalent based on their population size versus ours, 40,000 dead Americans in a day. Murder, kidnapping, torture, beheading. Would you want to be lectured by anybody in the world on how we should fight that war? I wouldn't. Mark Levin, great one. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.